It started with a feeling, small at first, like a soft tug at the back of my mind. A feeling that something in my life didn't quite fit, like a puzzle piece forced into the wrong place. I had always felt separate. Not unloved, not ignored, just different. My cousins shared jokes I didn't understand, my grandmother hushed her voice whenever I entered the room, and the adults exchanged strange looks whenever I asked about our family history. I used to think it was nothing. I used to think every family acted like that. But I was wrong. And the day I learned the truth, everything I believed about myself shattered. It began on a quiet Sunday afternoon. My cousins and I were sent to clean the old storeroom, a dusty space stuffed with forgotten things, rusted trunks, broken lamps, peeling photo albums. We were looking for extra blankets for guests, nothing dramatic. But fate never announces itself. It simply appears. And it appeared to me in the form of a wooden trunk shoved in the darkest corner of the room, covered with a cloth that looked older than all of us. Something about the trunk drew me toward it. I wiped the dust from the top, and that's when I saw it, my name, carved faintly into the wood. My breath hitched. Why would my name be on an old trunk buried in the storeroom? Before I could touch it again, my aunt's voice pierced the air. Ayesha. Tum udhar kia kar rahi ho? I jumped, startled. I hadn't heard her enter. I was just checking this trunk, I said. Her eyes widened for a split second, panic, unmistakable panic, before she forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. It's nothing. Just old things. Leave it. Old things didn't cause panic. My cousins exchanged quick glances, pretending to be busy with their phones, but their stiff posture told me they knew something too. They just weren't allowed to say it. I backed away from the trunk, but my mind couldn't leave it. All through dinner, all through the evening, that carved name burned in my memory. By nightfall, curiosity had turned into an ache in my chest. I needed to know. I needed to understand. So after everyone fell asleep, I slipped out of my room silently, making sure the stairs didn't creak under my feet. The house felt different in the dark, heavier somehow, like it knew I was about to uncover something it had tried to hide for years. The storeroom door opened with a soft click. I stepped inside, heart pounding, hands trembling. The trunk felt heavier this time, as if it were holding its breath along with me. I pressed my fingers to the rusted lock. It crumbled with one small push. Inside was a bundle wrapped in a faded shawl. I lifted it slowly, and a photograph fell out. It fluttered to the ground, landing face up. The girl in the picture looked about 16. She had my eyes. My smile. My features. Her hair fell in waves like mine. I froze. Who was she? I flipped the photograph over. The writing was old and faded, but still readable. For my daughter, Ayesha. My blood turned to ice. For my daughter. My name? But this girl was clearly from a time long before I was born. Hands shaking, I opened the bundle. Inside were letters, dozens of them, tied with a red thread. The top letter felt fragile, like it would tear if I breathed too hard. I unfolded it and began reading. Dear Amy. Please forgive me. I didn't want to bring shame to the family. Shame? What shame? I read on, my pulse speeding up with every line. I know you will not accept her. But she is still your granddaughter. Her name is Ayesha. I dropped the letter. Granddaughter. Ayesha. Me? I snatched another letter. I wish I could see my daughter at least once. Even from far away. This pain is unbearable. My vision blurred. Someone, my real mother, was writing letters about me. Letters begging for forgiveness. Letters filled with guilt. Letters never answered. My legs felt weak, but I forced myself to keep reading. Every letter mentioned a child. A daughter named Ayesha. A child taken from her mother. A child raised by someone else. Me. My breath shook. Tears gathered but didn't fall. Who was the girl in the photograph? Why did she look so much like me? Why did she write letters no one ever showed me? The truth swirled around me, terrifying and incomplete. I put the letters back in the trunk, but I kept the photograph. I needed answers, real ones. Morning came too fast. When I walked into the living room, everyone was already there. My parents, my grandmother, my aunt and uncle. Their faces dropped when they saw the photograph in my hand. "What is this?" I demanded. No one spoke at first. They just stared at me with guilt written across their faces. My father stood slowly. "Ayesha, where did you?" "From the trunk with my name on it," I snapped. The trunk everyone told me was nothing. My grandmother began crying. My aunt covered her mouth. My mother, no, the woman I had always believed was my mother, looked at me with eyes full of fear. "Ayesha beta," she whispered, voice cracking. "Sit down." "I'm not sitting," I said. "Tell me who this girl is. Tell me why she wrote letters begging for someone to accept her daughter. Tell me why she looks exactly like me. Tell me who my real mother is." Silence dropped over the room like a stone. Then finally, the woman I called mother spoke. "That girl," she whispered, tears spilling, "was your mother." Time stopped. "What?" She took a step toward me, her hands trembling. "I raised you," she said. "But I didn't give birth to you. You were born to my younger sister." My mind spun so violently I felt dizzy. "No," I whispered. "No, you're lying." My grandmother sobbed harder. "She died," my mother, my aunt, whispered. "3 days after you were born." My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. And instead of telling me the truth, I choked out, "You hid it. All of you. You let me grow up thinking I didn't belong because I wasn't supposed to know." Nobody spoke. I felt like the walls were closing in. "I trusted you," I whispered. "And you lied to me every single day." And I walked out of the house before they could say another word. The photograph crumpled in my fist, my heart breaking with every step. Everything I knew about myself had just collapsed. And the truth was only beginning. The sun had barely risen when I left Zara's apartment the next morning. The streets were quiet, washed in a pale golden light, but inside me everything felt heavy and stormy. I walked slowly, dragging my feet as if each step pulled me deeper into a world I didn't recognize. My family home, my home, felt foreign now. The people inside it felt like strangers. My past felt like a story written by someone else. When I reached our front door, I hesitated. My hand hovered over the doorknob, my fingers trembling slightly. I didn't want to walk in. I wasn't ready. But avoiding them forever wasn't an option, so I pushed the door open. The house was silent. My mother sat at the dining table, her hands wrapped around a cold cup of tea she hadn't touched. Her eyes were swollen and red. My father paced the living room like a man rehearsing a confession he didn't want to give. When they saw me, both froze. My mother opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. My father took a step forward, but I stepped back. The instinct was immediate and painful. I saw the way their faces broke at that tiny movement. It hurt, but I couldn't help it. "I'm sorry," my mother whispered finally, her voice so soft it almost vanished. "I didn't want you to find out this way." I swallowed hard. "Why did you keep this from me?" My father stopped pacing. His shoulders slumped. "You were a baby. Helpless. Alone. We didn't know if Amina would ever return. We didn't know if the people who threatened her would come after you. We made a choice, a desperate one. And when I grew up," I asked, my voice shaking, "why didn't you tell me then? When I could understand?" My mother looked down at her hands. "Every year, we planned to. Every birthday, every milestone, every moment you deserved the truth, we wanted to tell you. But you were so happy. So safe. We couldn't bring ourselves to shatter that. I felt the sting of tears again, but I blinked them back. You didn't protect me. You lied to me. Neither of them argued. The silence between us grew heavy. My sister Alina appeared in the doorway, her hair messy, her eyes tired. I didn't know, she said quietly. I swear, I didn't. I believed her. She wasn't a good liar, unlike our parents. The room felt suffocating, so I stepped outside again. My father followed me onto the porch, stopping a few feet behind me. There's more you should know, he said, his voice low. I turned around slowly. More? He nodded. Amina didn't simply leave you with us, she begged us to keep you hidden. She said someone was looking for you. Someone dangerous. The air around me seemed to thicken. Dangerous? Why? He hesitated. We don't know. She refused to say. She only said that your safety depended on you never knowing who she was. A strange fear curled inside me, sharp and cold. And you believed her? We had no reason not to, he said. She was terrified. She cried the entire night. She left you with us at dawn and disappeared before we woke up. I listened silently, trying to process his words. My biological mother had been scared. Running. Hiding. And she thought giving me away was the only way to save me. But from who? From what? I pressed a hand to my forehead. I need time, I said quietly. My father nodded. Take all the time you need. Just, don't shut us out. But I already felt shut out, by them, by the lies, by the truth I wasn't expecting. I walked away again, this time without any destination. My feet led me through town, past the places I had grown up visiting, the bakery that always smelled like cinnamon, the tiny library where I spent countless afternoons, the old park where we used to have picnics. Everything looked the same, but I wasn't the same anymore. The girl who had lived here didn't truly exist. She was a child born from secrets and raised on lies. By afternoon, I found myself sitting on a bench near the river. The water moved slowly, reflecting the sky like a restless mirror. The letters from Amina weighed heavily in my bag. I pulled them out and read them again. Each line felt like a tender apology written by a ghost. My little girl, forgive me. I wish I could hold you. I wish I could keep you safe. I hope your new family can give you what I cannot. There was love in her words, broken love, desperate love, terrified love. But there was also mystery. She never mentioned the danger directly. Never named anyone. Never explained why she had no choice. Zara joined me later that day. She sat quietly beside me, letting the wind fill the silence. Are you okay? She asked finally. I laughed softly, bitterly. I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. She nudged my shoulder gently. You're allowed to feel lost. Anyone would. I rested my head in my hands. I keep thinking, why didn't she come back? Why didn't she try to find me? Am I supposed to find her now? Zara was thoughtful. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she still can't. But if you want answers, you'll need to look for them. No one else can do it for you. The idea scared me. Finding her meant digging into a past filled with shadows and danger. But not finding her meant living with questions that would eat away at me forever. Later that evening, I returned home again. This time, my mother stood waiting for me at the door. She looked exhausted, her face pale, her eyes swollen. When I approached, she reached out hesitantly. I know you're hurt, she whispered. And you have every right to be. But please believe this, we never loved you any less. Not for a single moment. Her words cracked something inside me. I didn't forgive her, not yet, but I didn't pull away when she hugged me. Her arms trembled around me, as if she feared I might vanish if she held too tightly. Inside the house, my father handed me a small envelope. "This was with the letters," he said quietly. "We kept it aside because we didn't know what it meant." I held the envelope carefully. It was thin, old, sealed shut. My name was written on it in Amina's handwriting. My fingers shook as I opened it. Inside was a single photograph. A woman, young, beautiful, with kind eyes, held a newborn baby wrapped in a white blanket. The baby was me. On the back of the photo, in faint ink, was a message. "If someday you search for me, follow the name that isn't mine." Confusion washed over me. What did that mean? A name that wasn't hers? Was Amina even her real name? The ground beneath me felt unsteady again. My story wasn't just broken, it was layered with riddles and danger I didn't understand. That night, lying awake in my room, I stared at the ceiling as my mind echoed with the same question. Who was I really? And who was my mother running from? I didn't know it yet, but the path ahead would pull me deeper into a truth darker than anything I imagined, one that would test every bond, every emotion, every piece of the life I thought was mine. I couldn't stop thinking about Amina. Her letters, her photograph, the desperation in her words, all of it haunted me. I tried to sleep, I tried to eat, but nothing felt real. Everything I had known, everyone I had trusted, seemed suddenly distant and fragile. It was as if my life had been a careful painting, and someone had thrown water on it, smearing the colors into a pattern I didn't recognize. I knew one thing, I had to find her. I had to know why she had left me. I had to hear her voice, even if it was only through memories or records. I didn't care how impossible it seemed, or how many obstacles stood in my way. The idea of discovering her, of discovering the truth, was the only thing keeping me from feeling completely empty. The first step was to gather all the information I had. I went through the letters one by one, noting every hint of a location, every friend or relative mentioned, every subtle clue Amina had left. I copied names, addresses, and dates into a small notebook I kept tucked inside my bag. Every time I read her words, my heart ached a little more, but it also propelled me forward. I knew it would be dangerous to approach anyone in her life without caution. Her disappearance had been shrouded in fear. If someone had wanted to harm her before, they could still be out there. But the thought of waiting for years, or decades, for a miracle to happen was unbearable. I needed answers now. I started with the obvious, the last known address mentioned in her letters. It was in a town a few hours' drive from ours, a place she had called safe at the time. My father had refused to take me there when I was a child, citing safety concerns. Now, as an adult, I had no one to stop me. I packed a bag with essentials, carried the letters, and left before dawn, when the streets were empty and the world was still asleep. The journey was long and silent. My thoughts circled like vultures, returning again and again to the same questions. Why had she left me? Who had she feared? Did she think about me every day as I grew older, as I laughed, cried, and lived without her? By late afternoon, I arrived in the town. It was quiet, older than I expected, with narrow streets and small shops that smelled faintly of spices and dust. I asked a few locals about the family name mentioned in Amina's letters, and after several hours of questions and hesitant answers, someone pointed me toward a small, weathered house at the end of a lane. I walked slowly, my stomach twisted. Each step brought me closer to someone who might not even recognize me. The house was unremarkable, paint peeling, windows shaded by dusty curtains. I stood in front of the door for several minutes, my hand hovering above the handle. What if she wasn't there? What if I had traveled all this way for nothing? Finally, I knocked. The door opened slowly, revealing a man in his late 50s. His hair was streaked with gray, his face lined with age, but his eyes, hazel and sharp, paused on me, frozen in recognition. Who are you? He asked, his voice cautious. My name is Ayesha, I said softly. I think you knew Amina. His eyes widened, and he stepped back as if he hadn't expected to see me. The hesitation in his face told me he had not been prepared for this moment. Come in, he said finally, voice trembling. We need to talk. Inside, the house smelled faintly of old paper and memories. He gestured toward a chair, but I remained standing. Every nerve in my body was alert, tense. He exhaled and began to speak. Amina, she was my sister's friend, but she became like family. When she disappeared, I tried to find her. I never did. I never expected to see you. I held up the letters. She left these. She wrote about me. She called me her daughter. And you knew she existed. Why didn't anyone tell me the truth? His face fell. We were afraid. We didn't know who you were, or if it was safe for you to know. There were people who would have hurt her, or you, if they discovered the connection. We thought we were protecting you. Protecting me? I repeated. By hiding my entire life from me? I know it doesn't make sense, he said quietly. But we had no choice. She was scared, and we were scared for her. We didn't know what to do. I sank into the chair, exhausted. The pieces were finally coming together, but instead of relief, I felt a hollow ache. Every day of my childhood, every moment of my life that had felt strange or out of place, was explained now, but the explanation didn't make it any easier. You have to understand, he continued. Amina loved you. She wanted to be with you, but circumstances were beyond her control. She hoped you would be safe, even if it meant you would grow up without her. I closed my eyes, letting the words sink in. Love. Fear. Sacrifice. But also abandonment. The woman who had given me life had risked everything to keep me alive, and yet, she had left me in a world that didn't even know my story. I didn't know what to say. I felt gratitude, anger, sorrow, all at once. I need to see her, I whispered finally. I need to find her. I need to know her before I can forgive anyone for hiding the truth from me. He shook his head slowly. I don't know if she's alive. No one does. She disappeared completely. We tried everything, we never found her. I swallowed hard, trying to control the storm of emotions threatening to spill over. Then I'll search. I can't live like this, not knowing the rest of the story. He nodded. I understand. I'll help you. I can tell you everything I know, everything she told me. But be careful. Her world, it was complicated. Dangerous. I left the house that evening with a notebook full of new information, my heart heavy but determined. I had come closer to the truth, but the search was far from over. Every answer led to more questions, and every discovery carried the weight of the past. Walking back to the small inn I had rented for the night, I realized that nothing in my life would ever feel normal again. I had uncovered secrets that had been buried for decades. My identity, my family, and my very existence were now tangled with fear, love, and sacrifice I could barely comprehend. But despite the exhaustion, despite the grief, I felt a flicker of hope. I was closer to understanding who I was, who my mother had been, and why my family had chosen to keep the truth from me. That flicker was fragile, but it was enough to carry me forward. The search would not be easy, and the answers I sought might hurt more than I could imagine. But I couldn't stop now. I had to uncover the life that had been hidden from me, even if the cost was my own comfort, my own innocence, my own heart. The sun had set, and the town was quiet. I stood on the balcony of my room, staring at the horizon, the letters clutched in my hands. For the first time, I felt the weight of my existence in a new way, fragile, precious, and defined by secrets that no one could take away. I would find her. I had to. And when I did, I would finally understand who I was, and why my life had been so carefully rewritten by the people who claimed to love me. The next morning, I woke with the same ache in my chest, the same restless questions swirling in my mind. I had a lead, and that was all I had, an address in an old town, some faint names, and the hope that Amina had left more clues somewhere. I didn't know whether she was alive or not, but I couldn't stay in the uncertainty any longer. I had to find her. I packed my bag quickly, stuffing it with the letters, my notebook, and a small camera to document anything I might discover. My parents didn't ask where I was going. They had learned, in these last few days, that pressing me would only push me further away. Even so, my mother's eyes lingered on me as I left, a mixture of worry and helplessness that twisted my heart. The journey was long and lonely. Roads blurred into one another, towns became indistinct, and the hours stretched endlessly. I kept revisiting the letters in my mind, reading passages aloud under my breath, as though hearing Amina's words again could guide me. My little girl, forgive me, the phrase became a quiet mantra that pushed me forward. By late afternoon, I reached the town I had been searching for. It was smaller than I imagined, with narrow streets, old brick houses, and children playing in alleys as the sun dipped low in the sky. I asked locals cautiously about the names mentioned in Amina's letters. At first, no one seemed to know anything, but after hours of discreet questioning, a shopkeeper mentioned a family that had lived in the town long ago, a family with the surname Hassan. My heart hammered. Could it be? I followed the directions, weaving through the winding streets until I arrived at a modest house, slightly dilapidated, but clearly cared for. I stood in front of it, the photograph of Amina and the baby, me, in my pocket, and hesitated. The woman I was searching for might not be there. She might be gone forever. But if I didn't try now, I might never know. I knocked softly. The door creaked open, revealing an older woman with silver-streaked hair and eyes that were sharp but weary. She stared at me, frozen, as if the air itself had thickened between us. Who are you?" she asked cautiously. "My name is Ayesha," I said quietly. I think you knew Amina." Her face shifted suddenly, recognition flashing, followed by disbelief, then a fragile, cautious hope. She stepped back, gesturing for me to enter. Inside, the house smelled faintly of spices and old paper, like memories pressed into walls. She motioned for me to sit, and I did, clutching the letters as if they were lifelines. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then she whispered, You're her daughter." I nodded, unable to speak. My throat was tight with years of questions, doubts, and fears. "I found her letters," I said finally. "All of them. I know she loved me, but why did she leave? Why didn't she try to see me?" Tears glistened in her eyes. She was scared," the woman said. "Scared of people who wanted to hurt her, to hurt you. She thought leaving you with safe people she trusted, would protect you. She never stopped thinking about you, not for a day. But she couldn't return. Not then. And by the time she could have, everything had changed." I felt my chest tighten. The woman, Amina's friend, her confidant, told me about the years my mother had spent running, hiding from threats that had never truly reached me, yet shaped my life in silence. She told me about Amina's struggles, her heartbreak at leaving me behind, and the constant fear she carried in her heart. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" I asked, my voice quivering. "Why did they hide all of this?" The woman sighed deeply. "They thought they were protecting you. They didn't realize how much the silence would hurt. Your life was built on their fear, not their malice. But you needed to know the truth." I held the letters tighter, my tears finally spilling over. Every day of my life made sense now, the inexplicable tension, the secretive whispers, the feeling of being excluded, of being slightly different. Everything I had ever sensed but couldn't explain was now laid bare. For hours, she told me stories of Amina, her laughter, her stubbornness, her kindness, her dreams. I laughed softly at the moments that mirrored my own life. I cried at the ones that showed her pain. Piece by piece, I began to feel like I was finally connecting with her, finally understanding the woman who had given me life and then vanished. Finally, as the sun set outside, I asked the question that had haunted me since finding the letters: if she loved me so much, why didn't she try harder? Why didn't she fight to see me? The woman looked at me, her eyes wet but steady. She did fight. She fought in every way she could, from afar. But some battles are impossible to win alone. She believed leaving you safe was the only victory she could achieve. I nodded, feeling both anger and compassion rising inside me. I wanted to scream at her absence, to rail against the years I had lived with secrets. But I also understood, finally, the weight she had carried. The love and fear had been inseparable, and her choices, though painful, had been made from love. As I prepared to leave, I felt a strange peace settling over me. I had found her, or at least the closest thing to her that remained. I had heard the truth, learned the depth of her love, and begun to understand the life I had been living. I still carried the ache of years lost, of moments that could never be shared, but now there was clarity, and with clarity came a tentative strength. Returning home was different. The house that had once felt foreign now felt like a place where I could finally confront my past and shape my future. I shared what I had learned with my parents, my sister, and even my grandmother. The conversations were long, painful, and filled with tears, but slowly, the walls of fear and secrecy began to crumble. I realized that the family who had raised me had done so with love, even if it had been flawed. And Amina, though absent, had left a legacy of courage, of sacrifice, and of boundless love that could finally be acknowledged and honored. That night, lying in my bed, I held the photograph of Amina and the baby, me, close to my chest. I whispered words I had wanted to say for years, words that were never meant to be written or spoken. I forgive you, and I will carry your love with me, always. For the first time in my life, I felt whole, not because the past had been perfect, but because I finally understood it. I had discovered the secret that had once left me excluded, but instead of breaking me, it had given me strength, identity, and a connection that spanned time and distance. I wasn't just Ayesha, raised by my family. I was Ayesha, daughter of Amina, living with the echoes of her love, and finally free to embrace the life that had always been mine. And as I closed my eyes that night, I felt her presence in the quiet, in the letters, in the photograph. I felt her hope, her sorrow, her joy, all mingling with mine, and I knew, at last, that I belonged.